Ghosts are something that have fascinated the human species for thousands of years. The first one that we have recorded is the legend of Consuimheb and the Ghost. There's a video for that on the channel, by the way. But what we have today is something very different from what was represented in those earlier tales, something that is possibly more interesting on a literary standpoint, on an interpretive standpoint, and whatnot. Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I am Adrian Ford, and we're here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in two different playlists here on the channel. Number one being the poetry discussion playlist, now over 800 videos strong. Number two being the classic haunts playlist, a playlist of videos in October of 2025 leading up to, well, Halloween. It is all classic horror literature all the time here in October. The poem in question today is known as The Little Ghost by Edna St. Vincent Millay, and it reads as such. I knew her for a little ghost that in my garden walked. The wall is high, higher than most, and the green gate was locked. And yet I did not think of that till after she was gone. I knew her by the broad white hat, all ruffled, she had on, by the dear ruffles round her feet, by her small hands that hung in their lace mitts, austere and sweet, her gown's white folds among. I watched to see if she would stay, what she would do, and oh, she looked as if she liked the way I let my garden grow. She bent above my favorite mint, with conscious garden grace. She smiled and smiled. There was no hint of sadness in her face. She held her gown on either side to let her slippers show, and walk up and up the walk she went with pride, the way great ladies go. And where the wall is built in new and is of ivory bare, she paused, then opened and passed through a gate that once was there. Edna St. Vincent Millay is a writer that is often renowned for her feminist works. And the note is often made of this poem that it kind of stands outside of that canon, outside of the canon of her feminist works, outside of the canon of her feminist efforts, things like that. And what I'm going to do today is do something that I don't often do on this channel, and that is give a feminist interpretation. After my college days, I am all feminismed out. All of my classes at the college level were about feminism, so we're going to rebuke that today. I'd like to ask two questions. What is feminism, and what is a ghost? Those two things are very important to, I think, understanding this poem. In feminism, so we are on the third season. We are on what is known as third wave feminism right now. But Edna St. Vincent Millay was writing in the days of first wave feminism. And as I understand it, the feminism of Edna St. Vincent Millay was mainly focused on women's autonomy. So being able to do what it is that you want to do, regardless of whether or not you've got a man's with you. Being able to act independently and without societal constraint built on gender. Act independently without societal constraint. What is a ghost? A ghost is essentially, really, the past having a presence in the present and affecting the now. It is a figment of the past having some presence now that can affect things. Maybe ghosts can't lift things and move them, depending, is it a ghost or is it a poltergeist, right? Now we're getting into the weeds. But what I mean is, if a person, so think of A Christmas Carol. The ghosts present there do not move things about, but they move the soul of Ebenezer Scrooge, and so they have an effect in the present. So, feminism was a battle for autonomy, for the freedom from societal constraint. Ghosts are figments of the past affecting the now. Those two things in mind, those two definitions. Maybe I'm wrong, quibble with me, whatever you want, but let's have those as an acting definition of these two phenomena. And let's reread the poem with those in mind. Feminism as a freedom from societal constraint, ghosts as the past affecting the now. I knew her for a little ghost that in my garden walked. The wall is high, higher than most, and the green gate was locked. And yet I did not think of that till after she was gone. I knew her by the broad white hat, all ruffled, she had on, by the dear ruffles round her feet, by her small hands that hung in their lace mitts, austere and sweet, her gown's white folds among. I watched to see if she would stay, what she would do, and oh, she looked as if she liked the way I let my garden grow. She bent above my favorite mint with conscious garden grace. She smiled and smiled, there was no hint of sadness in her face. She held her gown on either side to let her slippers show, and up the walk she went with pride, the way great ladies go. And where the wall is built in new, and is of ivory bare, she paused, then opened and passed through a gate that once was there. I think in light of those two definitions of feminism and of ghosts, it is necessary to question whether or not the ghost in this poem is a former iteration of our speaker. Is our speaker seeing her former self walking through that garden? Is that ghost a premonition of her own past? Notice, so if we go to this portion in the poem here, she smiled and smiled. There was no hint of sadness in her face. She is unburdened by our narrator's fight. She is unabated by the battle that will be there for our speaker when she is fighting for her own autonomy and lack of societal constraint. And notice at the end here, that ghost from a former era stops and opens the gate, the societal constraint, which is no longer there. Is this to represent the fact that our speaker has won that battle, and the gate which was there for her former self when she was a little girl, that gate is no longer there. She is no longer constrained by said gate because that gate has been torn down. That societal constraint has been lifted, has been destroyed by the battle fought by our narrator here. There is a lot going on in this poem that might sort of point to that, but we have this as well. And up the walk she went with pride, the way great ladies go, perhaps aware that this battle has been won, perhaps aware that this constraint will be lifted in the future. Is this a former iteration of our speaker being there to admire the garden growing by the current speaker, because the current speaker has the freedom to do so? She admires the way that my garden grows. I get to do what I want here. I get to grow the flowers I want. There's no higher authority telling me I can't grow this, I can't grow that. I get to do as I please. I have won this battle. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing that I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. There is poetry every Monday, and as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.